Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Gershon with another Better Health webinar. I am super excited to be here with really two fantastic people who care about changing the healthcare system and also who are fantastic entrepreneurs and investors just in general. So I want to really introduce Amit Garg, who's the partner of Tau Ventures, and also Nick Desai, who's the CEO of Together by Renee. They're going to tell you an incredible story about their fantastic company, which is really about addressing chronic care, addressing the burden of this care on long-term caregivers, whether they're family or they're from institutions. This problem is ubiquitous in our healthcare system, does not have a good resolution. And entrepreneurs like Nick and investors like Amit are really moving the needle to change the healthcare system and improve patient lives. So with that kind of preface, I want to take a moment, as I do with every webinar, and I just want to thank you for being, such incredible viewers, really incredibly supportive of everything that you've done. We get so many emails and we get so many comments. I will say that we do encourage you to please, when you are logged in, to please enjoy using the chat. Tell us where you're logging in from. If you have a question, please include your email in that so that we can send you a response back. If we don't get to your question in this particular webinar, we will get back to you by email. And feel free to engage in the conversation in a very dynamic way, because both Amit and Nick, I think, have a lot to say, and is probably going to spark some interesting conversations. So please include that. And I also want to just take a moment and just give you a framework once again for better health. First, we do have a weekly webinar series at 12 o'clock. You can subscribe to our newsletter by just emailing subscribe@gershoncapital.com, and we will send you updates. The second is that the framework really is in 4 parts. The first is addressing emerging companies who are mission-driven, who are socially focused, but who have great scalable businesses. The second is unicorns that have already succeeded to some extent and are looking to grow. The third is really focusing in on women and disenfranchised community CEOs, because we are extremely supportive of those CEOs and communities. And fourth is a macro picture, like where are things going from a high level. So we feel in part at Endeavor that this is a reach out to our audience and our community building process. If you have suggestions about other ideas for how we can do the webinars, please feel free. We will be augmenting the webinars with podcasts, which will be shorter, somewhere in the 15 to 20-minute range. So if you have any ideas for those podcasts as well, feel free to pass them on. And lastly, I just want to do a shout out to the people that have already logged in. Martin from Norway, Nikhil from Canada, Emerson from Brazil, Stephen from Salt Lake, Jenny from New York. Hi, Jenny. Harvey from Dallas. Haven't been there, but I hear it's fun. And Jonathan from Raleigh so far have just told us where they're logging in from. So I want to shift it over now to the people that you're here to hear about, that you're here to hear from. I want to start a little bit with Amit. I want to understand a little bit, Amit, about your focus on being an entrepreneur. You've invested in quite a number of companies, and you obviously saw something special in Nick, and you saw something special in Together by Renee. Tell us a little bit about yourself as an investor. It's an incredibly difficult climate for investors and entrepreneur CEOs. And tell us a little bit about the connection that you have, with Nick and Together.
For sure. Well, Martin, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much to the audience. Nick, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to be here with you. I run Tau Ventures. We are a venture capital fund based in Silicon Valley. We're very active across the U.S. We're about 4 years old, actually. We had closed our first fund May 29th of 2000. So it's exactly pretty much 3 years from the close of our first fund. Um, Today, we have 85 million that we are managing. We do seed investments primarily. The definition of seed can get a little bit muddled. In very short, we look for companies that are just about to hit product market fit. They're 9 to 18 months away from it. They're going from 0 to 1, and I'm picking them up right somewhere in that journey, and helping scale them so that they can actually get to the Series A. We focus on helping them get more customers. We focus on helping them get more investors, and I can describe that in more detail. We have 50 companies right now in the portfolio. This is all on our website, tauventures.com. A little bit more on the healthcare side right now, a little bit less so on the enterprise side, which is the other focus that the fund has. And we're an AI first fund. So we look for companies that are meaningfully using AI to solve problems in healthcare, whether they're using computer vision to detect cancer, whether they're using machine learning to do drug discovery, whether they're using machine learning to help with chronic diseases, which brings me to the story of Nick. I got connected to Nick just about 3 years ago, and it was serendipitous. Nick reached out to us, to me specifically on LinkedIn, sent me a nice note saying, hey, we're raising a round. We have a few investors already committed. I know about you and your firm. Wanted to see if it makes sense to engage. And I was like, holy smokes, it's Nick Desai from Heal. He is reaching out to me. So to me, it was an absolute honor to be pinged by an entrepreneur that I already knew of and respected. It is not super common for us to end up investing in a company that reaches out to us, because a lot of companies reach out to us. In fact, my number is today 4,000 companies reaching out per year, and you end up doing 10 to 12 investments. But what I saw in Nick and his co-founder Renee was many things here that are very exciting. They had built a company before. They had built multiple companies before. The one that I knew of was called Heal. They had raised $200 million for Heal. They got it to a pretty big company in terms of size. And they were trying to solve similar problems to what they're doing right now with Renee. They were, at Heal at least, they were helping you get the right kind of care at the right time. And they were starting Renee with a vision of, let's focus on senior citizens. Let's focus on those folks who are burdened by trying to figure out what to do, where to go, who to talk to. It is a nightmare in the US. And I speak this from the perspective of both an investor and as a patient. At the end of the day, all of us are patients. I find it mind-boggling how much bureaucracy there is and how difficult it is to understand what to do in the US healthcare system. And I've lived through other healthcare systems, which I'm happy to speak to if Martin, you would like. But I looked at Nick as building a solution that is very much needed. Help people who really have a lot of healthcare needs figure out how to go about getting those needs met and make it much more efficient, not just for them, but also for their caregivers. So I ended up taking the bet, and Nick can share more about what the company has done since. It's been a couple of years journey now that we have been working together. But suffices to say that there's many good investors involved, many good people involved, and we're collectively committed here towards, yes, let's build a company. It's for profit. Let's make money, but let's make it in the right way by solving for a big need in society.
And I think, just to interject here for a second. So, one of the things that's drawn me to Amit and to Nick is the intersection of the mission-driven approach at Endeavor. So, Endeavor 2 is a fund which finances healthcare and life science and bio-ag companies. Endeavor Venture Studio is a venture studio model which mimics to some extent the things that Amit was talking about. We really pick up pre-seed and seed companies to develop them. We work with them aggressively every single week to build out collaboration partners, to develop licensing deals, to develop revenue streams with bespoke go-to-market strategies. So the two feed into each other in a very kind of singular way, which overlaps with what Amit was saying. And we really look at companies within the portfolio as part of an ecosystem that is designed to work within the portfolio to help each portfolio company out with each other and with our ecosystem of big tech, big pharma, biotech, med tech, multiple universities, all driven at the same kind of direction, which is helping patients, helping healthcare givers, helping improve the economics of the healthcare system. So that mission-driven approach is what really has binded the three of us together in this webinar. Nick, you're up.
Great. Well, thank you, Martin, and for having Amit and I. It's a real pleasure to be here. And Amit, thank you so much for the great and kind words. Before going on about ourselves at all, I just want to say that there are a lot of venture capital firms out there, and yeah, it's hard to get money from anybody, and it's a particularly hard time. But if you have the opportunity to come across people like Amit and Sanjay and Sonal and the team at Tau, you are dealing with the kinds of investors that make you want to get up and work even harder than you normally would, right? And it's a combination of intellect, passion, support without blowing smoke up your ass, right? Um, and just it feels
This
like
is
a small,
live, Nick.
huh?
This is live.
Yeah. Am I not? Are we not adult enough to say
I
that?
know, I'm only
In any
teasing.
case, look, I will say this. I've talked to two or three or four other Tau entrepreneurs, and they all say that almost the same words, which is like having Amit invested is like having a whole other person work for you on top of giving you money,
That's
right? And so we're incredibly, and it was the first outreach we made for our new company because he was the kind of person we wanted to work with. And we're lucky enough to work with him. What we're doing is approaching exactly the problem you talked about, Martin, right? Which is in exactly the way Amit talked about, which is to use AI to make healthcare routine, cumbersome, annoying healthcare tasks that much easier. Unfortunately, in America, unfortunately, everywhere in the world, getting older means dealing with chronic disease. Your back hurts, you're losing weight, you're gaining weight, you have diabetes, you have high cholesterol, you have hypertension, mental health issues, COPD, between my parents and my in-laws, between the four of them, I can think of 12 health issues, and they're reasonably healthy people, right, as far as these things go. Um, but what it means in America is that you're going to get these health issues, and that is going to plunge you into this quagmire of a system where you are effectively forced to become a general contractor for your own health that takes all of these different inputs from doctors, from therapists, and instructions and commands. Take these pills, get those labs done, then get that echo done, then get these preventative health exams done, fill out these forms, coordinate this, remember to do this, all this stuff. And it's impossibly difficult. It's impossibly difficult for anyone. Certainly, people who are getting older and are the people dealing with the issues. And what that does is one of two things. One, it thrusts adults like us, like the people on this call, into the role of caregiver for our aging parents. And that is a role that's not infrastructurally supported in the United States. So there are 53 million American adults who are caregivers to their aging parents, and most of them have no idea what they're doing. And unfortunately, it means that older people are, and anyone with chronic disease, people over 45 with chronic disease, are simply not following their care plan. They're not taking the meds. They're not doing the preventive exams. They're not tracking their blood pressure every day. They're not getting their stress echo once a year. And the thing about healthcare in America is this: 80 million Americans suffer two or more chronic disease. Those 80 million people consume 92% of U.S. healthcare costs. Okay. But I'm a 53-year-old guy. I have chronic disease. Okay. I have high blood pressure. I have high cholesterol. I'm an Indian guy. I like a lot of butter, cheese, and meat for that matter. And it causes high cholesterol and high hypertension. Great. Went to the doctor a year ago, was first diagnosed, said, take these pills, take these other pills, do this blood test every 3 months, do this, do that. I do it. I do it partly because I have a wife who's a physician and my co-founder in this business who makes me do it, but I do it. And guess what? A year later, blood pressure is well managed, Cholesterol is much lower. I'm generally in good health. There is no secret. And there is nothing we can't get. An overwhelming majority of Americans deal with health issues that we can easily remedy with available low-cost medications, widely accepted testing, regular monitoring, and some emotional support, right? And what we're trying to do with Together is to use AI because there is no caregiving infrastructure. We're already pouring $4 trillion into the healthcare system, and there's no more money available to use AI to automate those functions that make healthcare easier to actually do what you're supposed to do in the first place. So, as an example, we don't just remind you that you take Lipitor for your cholesterol, you need to get it refilled. We actually use AI to call the pharmacy and refill it for you, right? We don't just tell you, go measure your blood pressure, right? We're the first US based company that's approved to use your face, literally by holding up your phone to your face, to measure vital signs like blood pressure and heart rate and pulse ox. We don't just tell you that you need to see a doctor, it's time for your stress echo. We'll actually use AI to make that call and make that appointment for you, right? And by doing these things, and reminding you to take meds and filling out forms and telling you what benefits you have in your insurance, all of a sudden we take all that confusion and hassle and annoyance out of healthcare so you can actually do what you're supposed to and just feel better, right? Which is what the point of healthcare is supposed to be, not to plunge us into an endless morass of paperwork and hold times. I often ask people this question and they will come back to me and say this, that what is the only thing in America that you actually wait on hold for by making phone calls anymore because everything can be done on the internet? It's making doctor's appointments.
Sometimes it's not even phone calls. Sometimes faxes.
Yes, faxes. I had UCLA Health the other day tell me, "Can you fax me that?" And I was like, "Are you joking? It's 2023. I haven't used a fax machine in 25 years." Right. So that's what we do at Together by Renee. And again, we're thrilled to have Amit as an investor. Just a little bit about me. I'm a 5-time venture funded entrepreneur. I've had the privilege of starting these last two companies, Heal and this one, with my wife, Dr. Renee Dua, who is a practicing kidney doctor. We are husband and wife, and we didn't meet through our work. We were married before. We have 3 beautiful young children. And so we are co-founders in our 3 kids and co-founders in 2 companies now.
That's just a fantastic introduction. Thank you both for that overview. And the energy and dynamic authenticity that both of you bring is so appreciated, and I'm sure that the audience appreciate that, those comments. So I just want to give a shout out to people who have signed in here very quickly. And please, when you sign in, let us know where you're signing in from. Christian, thank you so much. Martin again. Wedge also signed in. Malik, hello Malik, hope you're well. Johnny, welcome aboard. So Stephen also, Emerson. I think at this point I want to just focus in a little bit. We've talked about high level. Let's focus in and get into the weeds a little bit about the process. So I know firsthand, working in a major medical center, in New York City, how chaotic, how cumbersome, how really disorientating the hospital experience can be. And when you leave the hospital and then there's this transition into home, that transition just falls flat all the time. There are transition representatives in the hospital, but by and large, it's a very cumbersome process. And I think that you touched on many of the points, but one of the things that you didn't necessarily kind of hammer home is the emotional impact. This is a debilitating process. And to go through all that paperwork and to go through all these things and to have, insensitive experiences with people, and your sensitivities, by the way, they're exponentially heightened when you're sick. And
Yep.
This is something that the first time physicians become patients, they have this epiphany. Like the lights are brighter, the sounds are louder, the way people come and approach you is more invasive. Everything happens faster. And so all of this is a very kind of strong headwind emotionally. Depending on your nature and depending on, your physical and emotional condition, I mean, these things can really be very debilitating. And so being able to take care of yourself in this transition period, even in the short term, can be quite challenging depending on your disease. And very often people with chronic diseases bounce back and forth between hospital and home.
Yep.
And so this is a cumulative emotional problem that I think is being addressed somewhat in the digital health space with things like VR for mild depression. You know, and so I think what you're doing is a piece of the mosaic that's critical. There are other people that are focusing in on other pieces of this mosaic, but I wanted to highlight that, that kind of mental health and emotional health aspect is absolutely critical. And it's not just for the patient, it's also for the caregiver. So the caregiver really, whether it's a family member or it's a friend or whether it's someone from an institution, they're all burdened. And these emotional things that happen to the patient, depending particularly on how close you are with the patient, they have to, rub off on you and sometimes in a negative way. So I think that what I would like for you to speak about is some of the practical operational things. So, when do you begin to engage with a patient? When do you begin to engage with a caregiver? How do you begin to engage? Like, what is that communication system like? And then, from an ongoing kind of observational, framework, this is a chronic care problem, which means you need chronic follow up. And that's one of the major problems within the outpatient arena. When you're out, you're out. All of this kind of outreach stuff where there's like a visiting nurse, I can tell you from firsthand experience, it's less than optimal, and that's being
Yep.
quite kind. Um, depending on where you are in the socioeconomic stratification, it's okay to horrific. It's
Yep.
never good. Like okay is the glass ceiling.
Yep.
And that's if you have significant personal resources.
Right.
But things like not knowing who the patient is, not knowing the medication that they're on, not knowing their personal dislikes, not knowing their kind of general kind of mental status, not having a personal relationship. I mean, all of these things add stress to the emotional and mental health kind of situation. So I want to understand a little bit how you plug in, who you plug into. I want to touch on a little bit about how you follow through. How is AI aggregating all of this?
Yeah. So look, I think first, just to comment a little bit on the problem, 75% of people who are caregivers themselves feel anxiety or symptoms of depression after about 6 months to a year of being caregivers. Because it's one thing to love your parents. I love my dad. I don't know all the medications he takes. I don't know all the doctors he had. And if I was the one responsible for handling all that stuff, it would, freak me out. I'm not qualified to do it, right? I have no particular training on how to be a caregiver other than the fact that I love my dad. The other thing is, you mentioned leaving the hospital, but even when you just leave a doctor's office with chronic conditions, you're not leaving a doctor's office. You see your PCP, then the cardiologist, then the kidney doctor, then the this, and everyone leaves you with a piece of paper with a set of instructions, right? And all of a sudden, you're supposed to follow all these instructions and do all these things and take all the. I left my cardiologist, I remember this a year ago, and they circled a phone number on top of a paper. And while the cardiologist is talking to me and saying this and that, they give me this piece of paper of a place I'm supposed to call to make an appointment to go get certain kind of chest CT. That then sent me a bunch of forms that I had to fill out and fax back in, by the way, right? And if it not were not for the fact that my wife's a doctor and that I've worked in healthcare, I would have simply never done it, right? I would have never known how to do it. And so it becomes not only emotionally draining, but humiliating, right? Like otherwise able bodied people are like, I don't know the answer to this question, right? I don't know the answer to all these questions, and I'm answering them over and over. Our approach to that is to focus. There's a lot of approaches out there, and some of them are we'll give caregivers emotional support, and we'll give people companions, and we'll give people this. And I think some of them are really, really interesting. Amit has another portfolio company called Get Hank, which my wife and I were talking about yesterday. As soon as you go from being adults with kids in the home to adults who are empty nesters, they help you reestablish friendships and stuff with people in your community that you're like-minded, just so that you're not alone, because loneliness is such a critical factor, right? Which I think is a really great approach. But our approach is the least sexy sounding one, which is you download an app, and without having to type anything or enter any information, because people hate that or people don't know, you simply take pictures of your pill bottles, standard traditional medication pill bottles that look like this. Okay. And by taking pictures of these bottles, we are able to use AI to extract a ton of information. Everything from that medication, its dosage, how often you have to take it, what pharmacy prescribed it, when is a refill due, what are the dosage instructions, to who's the doctor that prescribed it, and what health issues do you have that are causing you to take this medication. And from a combination of you taking pictures of your medications, we're able to build a full and dynamic health profile. Then you take a picture of an insurance card, okay, and you take a picture of little appointment cards. You know, when you go to the doctor's office and they give you that little card that says come back in on June 27th at 3 p.m., and then you don't know where that card is. Just by taking pictures of things like that, we'll put that appointment on your schedule. We allow you to pick who your caregiver is, or you signing up as a caregiver and inviting the patient, your dad. Okay. So now he goes to the appointment, he takes a picture of that appointment card. I know when I have to drive him to the next appointment. I'm the one managing his refills. I know when they're all due. I know that Together has made calls to the pharmacy. I can just go pick them up. Time saved. And by doing those things, filling out your doctor's all of a sudden says, Nick, my doctor said, you need physical therapy for your back. Okay. The first time I heard that, I was like, okay, great. And I was like, what do I do now? Right. Well, you got to go. You got to find a place for physical therapy. You got to find out if they take your insurance. Then they say, come on in, fill out some forms, right? All that stuff we're trying to take care of by doing for you, right?
So you cross-check insurance for a provider?
Yes, we do. We do a benefits verification, so we can tell you, hey, this I'm sending you to someone who does take your insurance, and I'm sending you to someone who will does fit your needs. Or if there's a language issue, right? To send a elderly person who speaks Vietnamese or Chinese or Korean or Armenian or Hindi or Bengali to a physical therapist, and they can't describe their health issues, right, in any meaningful way. So the point of what we do though is it's, and sometimes when I describe it to people, they're like, well, how is this healthcare and how is this AI? And all you're doing is taking the most where healthcare falls down in America is not this pill isn't working for me. It's I'm supposed to take this pill. I realize I'm out of refills. Now I got to drive to the pharmacy. I wait in line. I don't have a ride. Maybe I get there. I wait in line. I get up to the front and I hear those dreaded words. Your doctor hasn't called in this medication, or you're out of refills. Now it's a Friday afternoon and I have to call my doctor's office, but they're closed. So and that's it. And then I stop taking the medication.
Right.
Oh, Nick, and you forgot to mention the whole 1 hour wait that you have in order to get to the front of the line.
Yes. And you're sitting there with a bunch of sick people in CVS who are all coughing up things that you're like, am I going to get that? Yes, exactly right.
So just to understand a little bit more, like who has control of the app? Is it the caregiver or the patient?
That's sort of a unique point in our app is the way we built it. Both people have control, right?
Okay. And does the patient have the ability to input personal comments and data, or is it,
But you never have to type anything in. It's all voice and picture based. Your
Okay.
doctor gives you that care plan form that they print out. You can take a picture of it. We store it for you. Then
Okay.
your caregiver can see it. Then they can start taking action. Renee uses the app with her dad, right? And sees his vital signs and sees his pain level uh, and says, Dad, what should we do about this? And what should we do about that? She
Right.
sees that, okay, he's going in for this surgery. Okay, calls her brother and sister and says, okay, who's going to drive dad? Who's going to check on him? Right? Everything's planned in advance. And it just makes it that much easier for the person to have a less humiliating, more dignified experience.
Is there a section where patients can put in any type of notes or caregivers can put in notes? So if they have a reaction to a medication, or they have a problem with an insurance.
That is coming, voice-based notes, which is just, and what we call them sort of just this is some, I don't feel good today. All the way from that to next time I see my doctor, I want to ask him about this rash, right? We all do that. We all have the white coat
Right.
effect. When I see my doctor, I'm going to ask about this. Then you get there and they're like, do you have any questions? You're like, oh, right? It's just that what's called a white coat effect.
Right. Well, let me do two things. First, thank you for that, level of granularity. Second is, I know that you have a small video which you're going to only show part of potentially, which maybe you can talk us through some of this, what it looks like, what it feels like, the visual kind of cue. I think would be quite nice for us to see. And then the last question is, this sounds terrific. It's a platform that you can build on. I'm sure that you can have feedback from caregivers, from patients, to build out Gen 2, Gen 3, whatever. And how does this a sync with any of the electronic healthcare record systems like Epic or Nuance? And then second, who pays for all of this?
So the answer to I'll play the video momentarily, but the answer to the how does this sync is right now we intentionally built an app that transcends any EMR, hospital system, or health insurance company's walled garden, right? Because here's how healthcare works. I'm with you. My doctor's with UCLA Health System. So if I want to access my doctor electronically, I have to sign up for my chart through UCLA Health System, through Epic, okay, which is no easy process, by the way, okay, and nobody does. But then if I go to a cardiologist who's not with UCLA Health System, all that stuff inside that my chart UCLA system is completely unavailable, is opaque to that cardiologist or that physical therapist. So we wanted to build an app that focused on the information consumers have, taking pictures of that information and building health profile. We will integrate with EHRs when we are able to connect patients to their providers, and the providers can enter information into the EHR for billing purposes, so they have a built-in incentive to use the system, right?
And do you anticipate your product, or maybe it already is, to be HIPAA compliant?
So technically a healthcare assistant like ours is not required to be HIPAA compliant. We are, of course, voluntarily strictly HIPAA compliant, and then some. We have extremely stringent privacy and security policies, right, that we take very seriously. And having run Heal, I just know that people take this stuff very seriously, and we do. And I wouldn't want my information revealed or violated in any way. So with that, if you allow me, I'll show a couple of seconds of the video. I know we're coming up on time here, right? So just show a couple of seconds of the video. For anyone who watches this or is interested, I'm sorry for the shameless plug. I'm Nick at Renee.com, Nick at Renee.com. You can email me. I can send you the full demo video and much more information.
Yeah, I think, as we discussed before, part of this webinar, which I believe is authentically different, is that this is a community of viewers. This is people who care about what you and Amit and other great entrepreneur investors are doing. So, a shout out really is part of the ecosystem vibe and part of the ethos, which is collaboration. So the notion that small companies and emerging companies need support from people is part of the ethos of the Better Health community. So I would encourage that people contact Nick with ideas, comments, thoughts. Certainly anybody from industry, out there who feels that this is a synergistic, company with what they're looking to do and helping with problem solving. So that is all well and good, Nick.
Awesome. All right. So let me just show a quick couple of seconds of the video here. As soon as you tell me I can.
I'm going to put it up right now.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, what you'll see here is, for example, this is just scanning a round pill bottle, right? And one of the technologies we've developed is you can scan that cylindrical label and it captures all this information. From that information, it builds a health profile, including your doctor and I'll just fast forward a bit, and your preventive health exams, right? You could take vitals just by your face. It will measure blood pressure, heart rate, pulse ox, etc. And it will do this for a loved one on their device and share it with you. You have your care circle, which is all your doctors, therapists, everything all in one place. You're able to, and I'm just going to fast forward here. When you see that you have a refill due for Crestor and you say call pharmacy, we will literally actually call the pharmacy and make that phone call. I won't play that whole thing again in the interest of time, but it will do that. We will go past that section here.
Hello.
Sorry, it's still making that phone call.
The patient's birth.
Uh, Here we go. You can take a picture of your insurance card and ask questions. Once you do, so your doctor, imagine, says, "Oh, you need to get your teeth checked. Your GI issues are because of mouth bacteria." Okay, you use your voice and say, "Hey, what are my dental benefits?" And the app will come back and have read that 100-page insurance policy and say, here's a summary of your dental benefits, right? So that you know what you're in for when you go to the dentist. Your doctor gives you that little appointment card that looks like this, right? This little piece of paper with chicken scratches on it. Instead of trying to write that down or enter it or store that card, it'll add that calendar to your Google Calendar, to your iOS calendar, right? So all of the kinds of things that make it possible for you and the person you're caring for, or you as a caregiver, to make healthcare that much easier. And with that, I'll stop for now. Again, will show out that we fill out forms for you and stuff. But the point is, we try to make the routine, mundane aspects of healthcare meaningfully easier for everyday people, for adults, typically 45 and up, who have chronic disease, and their caregivers, right? That's
Fantastic.
the idea here. Um, and I'll stop talking.
Yeah, I want to throw it back to Amit because, how does this fit into the portfolio? You have quite a number of companies that you've invested in. Obviously, you're a very thoughtful investor. Um, Nick's company stands on its own in terms of, what it can do, and his prominence as a serial entrepreneur is outstanding. But give us a picture about, you're an entrepreneur, you're an investor. How does that all come together in your mind? These are difficult times, even though from our research, healthcare really is leading the charge in terms of liquidity, and more investments are made in digital health than in any other sector by a wide margin. How does this fit together into the mosaic of where you're taking Tao?
Yeah, no, lots to unpack there, Martin. Let me first define a little bit what venture capital is, because different people have different notions of it. So venture capital is about companies that can scale quickly. There's plenty of companies that get created out there for whom venture capital is not the right choice. What I'm looking for when we make an investment is, can we, by investing capital, become partners with this company and help them grow quickly? If you look at so many companies that have changed how we live, how we work, how we think, Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and I can name so many others. They were all funded at some point in time by venture capital. And they're disproportionately important to our economy, to our innovation economy. I dare say that venture capital is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful lever when it comes to financing innovation. So that's what I look for. I look for founders who have a big vision, who also have the aptitude and the ability to execute on that big vision. And Nick and Renee certainly fit that bill. Our other founders also very much doing different things. We specifically are an AI first fund, and we have been doing an AI first fund since we started 4 years ago as a firm, before AI became this huge buzzword that it is today. And my relationship with AI precedes decades before that. I'm a computer scientist by training, as is my co-founder. And we have been either building AI or working with AI for almost 20 years before we said, okay, it is now at the point where you can leverage AI to solve problems. Like Nick is doing right now. He's leveraging AI to solve the problem of medication compliance, appointment reminders, medication refillings, all the little nitty-gritty details of healthcare that Nick described. right? He's not building it from scratch. He's leveraging the technology stacks that already exist and using it, deploying it to solve a problem. Um, I see this revolution really in the same vein that mobile or .com or internet happened. Um, Nobody says now that I have a website, right? It's kind of understood I have a website, right? AI is going through that same transition where in a few years down the road, we're going to look back and say, yeah, duh, that was obviously the right thing for us to embed AI into
Right.
our company, into our product. And my message to all the viewers here in real time and offline is if you're not thinking about how AI affects your business, you're going to get left behind because AI is a multi-dimensional Swiss knife. It's incredibly powerful. It can do so many things and accelerate perhaps in terms of speed, accelerate in terms of perhaps lowering costs, accelerate in terms of the features you can provide. And I like to say that at a startup, by definition, you're battling the odds. You have to build a moat that is 10x. You have to be 10x better than incumbents. You have to be 10x better so you can stave off fast followers. How do you do that 10x? It's ultimately about execution, but you can create a moat. You can create that execution by leveraging AI. So just to go a little bit beyond here, Nick mentioned if a couple of our other companies, but let me mention a few others. We have a company that leverages a continuous glucose monitor. These are devices made by Dexcom and Abbott and Medtronic, and you wear them on your skin. And they're small in this day and age. And if you have diabetes or if you've known somebody who has diabetes, you've probably seen these devices. Well, this company called Signals thought, how about I also repurpose this device to help people lose weight? Obesity is very closely correlated with diabetes. Let me help people take the better decisions when they eat, when they drink, when they exercise, when they sleep. Let me give the view of what's going on inside their body in real time. Um, and I have a saying that if you can measure it, you can monitor it, and if you can monitor it, you can modify it. So this company is not going to magically help you lose weight, but if you're committed to trying to understand what's going on inside your body, you can take the best decisions. We have another company called Iterative Health, which I briefly alluded to in the beginning of the call. They started off with saying, look, the polyps in my intestine, they're very small, they're hidden. It's very hard to use something like an MRI, a non-invasive method of imaging, to find them. You really got to do that colonoscopy. And by some metrics, even the best doctors miss out that polyp by 25% of the time. So think about the issue. You go through colonoscopy, it's 1 or 2 days that you're kind of knocked out, and you don't end up detecting the polyp, and you detect it 4 or 5 years too late. And at that point, you have actually cancer, and you may not be able to treat at the right time, and you could lose a life. And that has happened in very high profile cases. For instance, the actor that played the lead for Black Panther, he unfortunately passed away from this type of cancer. Um, so Iterative Health said, look, I'm going to train videos of colonoscopies. I'm going to train my algorithm so that in real time, when you're doing a colonoscopy, I'm going to help the doctor identify, look, there is a potential polyp here that's cancerous. Let's take a look. And they were able to increase the rate of detection to 99%. That is game changing. That is an application of an AI to detect cancer. That's absolutely game changing. Now they have moved much further than that. Not only are they detecting cancer, but they're actually helping diagnose a whole set of conditions: IBD, inflammatory bowel diseases, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. Think of them as building a gastroenterology platform. Any issue that you have with your gut, they'll be able to diagnose it and help you eventually treat it. That's what we look for.
Great.
They start with something, kind of like where Nick is. It's starting with something, helping make mundane tasks in healthcare better, starting with something, help detect cancer, and then you have a big vision and a big platform. I have a dream here. I do have a dream that we make healthcare into true healthcare. What we have in the world today is not healthcare. We have sick care. We take care of people when they're sick. We pack them up back home and we say, okay, problem solved. The problem is not solved. The behaviors that led for you to get unwell are going to reoccur, are going to cause chronic diseases, are going to cause loss of life. And in fact, we spend so much money. Nick said the number $4 trillion trying to basically do a patchwork instead of true healthcare. If we actually did preventive healthcare, if we help people actually understand what to do, how to do it better, we
And
would spend
cost less.
far less money, we would have far better outcomes, and we would have a better society.
No, that's great. I mean, that overview of your kind of vision, your philosophy, how that actually embeds in a practical way in decision making, what you look for in terms of, entrepreneurs, their kind of mindset, their capabilities, their vision. It's extremely important, I think, to the people that are viewing, because many of the people who are, tuning in today are entrepreneurs. Some of the people who, are listening in or in the audience right now may have been discouraged over the past several months. It's a tough environment to raise money. It's a tough time to be an entrepreneur. I think your words are very illuminating and very energizing, because there are people like yourself who recognize, that time doesn't stand still. And, there is a tremendous opportunity right now to work with people like Nick and others. So this is, for me, a shout out to entrepreneurs. Please contact me at martin@gershoncapital.com. Please contact Amit. Um, you know, if you have an interest in working with Endeavor, with Tao, I know I can speak for Amit. It would be our pleasure to evaluate your company. And I think a description that Amit just gave you is in large part one that Endeavor shares. So we're very much aligned about looking for highly motivated CEOs, with track records, with mission driven, companies that are game changer potential for the healthcare system.
Hey, man. And Martin, I didn't address the last part of your question, which you just alluded to. The markets are tough right now. Absolutely. There's so many numbers out there that the viewers may have seen, that show that fundraising is tougher right now than it was before. But it is a correction. It's not a crash. Fundraising is supposed to be hard. Building a company is supposed to be hard. Success is hard. In fact, 90% of the startups will fail. And a good investor recognizes that. A good entrepreneur should also be aware of it, that you are battling the odds. And it's kind of like building the parachute while you're falling through the abyss. You are falling, but you figure it out. And you find other good people to help you in that journey. I'm not going to say that only things that are hard are worth doing, but a lot of things that are hard are worth doing. And I think innovation, entrepreneurship is an incredibly powerful way for us to go from what it is to what it should be. So I highly encourage anybody who's thinking of an idea. This is the land of opportunity. We're speaking here in the US. I realize that some of the viewers live in other countries, but the opportunity is now increasingly global. The world is increasingly flat. If you find an investor in a different part of the world, if you find an entrepreneur in a different part of the world, if you find your team distributed across the world, this is actually something that COVID accelerated, that used to happen, but now happens even more. I do think you can find like-minded people, join hands, and build something meaningful. And in this journey, if you find that us here at Tau Ventures could be part of it, please absolutely feel free to reach out. Nick did this. I just warn you that we get 4,000 companies reaching out to us. So just because you don't hear back from us doesn't mean that you don't have a good company. It may not be a good fit for us. We do follow up whenever makes sense, but there are thousands of other investors out there. There's investors come in all sizes, shapes, and forms. And if you are unsure of who to go talk to, do some homework. Talk to people who have done it before. Do some research online. There's plenty of resources available in this day and age for you to figure out who you should partner with.
That's fantastic. Well, first, I want to thank the audience. I mean, everyone here, such thoughtful comments. We didn't really have a chance to take any questions, but if you have a particular question that you would like either Nick or Amit or myself to answer, please put your email in with the question. We will get back to you. And second, really, Amit and Nick, thank you so much for a dynamic, energetic, and thought-provoking conversation. I am going to extend an invitation immediately for you guys to come back and follow up to see how Together is growing and how your portfolio is growing, Amit. And this is all about impact. This is all about changing the healthcare system. I have no doubt on the revisit of this interesting conversation we're going to hear many amazing stories about how the company is growing and how the fund is growing. So thank you very much both for taking the time for today.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We're going to sign off, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon. Amit and Nick, hang on for just a couple of seconds.